Hello everyone, it is Toby from Toby's Urban Sketch, and today we are sketching this. This is Eilean Donan Castle in Scotland. Apologies for the inevitable mispronunciation. And this whole video is about a four-step process, a simple four-step process to produce this. And what are we using? We're using watercolours and ink in that order. So instead of normally sketching with ink and then adding our watercolours, what we're going to do, we're going to be brave, we're going to go straight in with our watercolours, and then we're going to add the ink on later. Now, why am I showing you this at the beginning? I don't normally show you the finished thing at the beginning. Well, the reason is this process requires faith. Because we don't bring the structure until the end, it kind of looks scary and messy for the first 80%. And you've just got to believe that the process you're following is heading in the right direction. If you don't believe that, then it won't get there. You might rush or you might overdo it. But if you just believe and you trust, I'm sure that you'll produce something you're really proud of. So, without further ado, we'll get into the four-step process. And I will start by explaining exactly everything that we're using today. And what are we using? Well, I've got a little A4 or letter-sized piece of cold-pressed watercolour paper, and it's taped down just at the corners with a little bit of masking tape. This is to keep it from floating and moving away too much, but also because we use lots of water with this, it allows the paper to move without buckling too much. Now this masking tape, little top tip, is going to go under my drawing board. Now what that means is my drawing board's now at about a 10-degree angle, so the watercolours can gently float down. It just provides a nicer experience for sketching with watercolours. In terms of my brushes, now with this kind of direct watercolour, I love using a big flat brush. So I've got a 1-inch flat brush, and then I've got a smaller size 10 round brush with a very nice point. And then, of course, we've got the ink. This is my Pentel brush pen. Now, if you don't have a brush pen, don't worry. This same technique you could use with a feud pen. You could use with a fine liner. I'd probably suggest something a bit bolder, like a 0.5mm fine liner or bigger, or with just a fountain pen. All of these things are wonderful, flexible things to use and apply those dark, bold lines to our page. And lastly, of our main things, we've got, of course, watercolours. Now, if you want to know exactly what's in there, I will tell you as I'm using colours, I'll tell you what they are. But of course, do check my website, urbansketch.co.uk, and there's a supplies tab which just explains basically everything I like using. And I've got my big pot of water. And that's pretty much it. And notice I didn't say a pencil. So we're going to be brave and not use a pencil, and we're going to see that it doesn't matter, that it really doesn't matter, that we won't be perfect, but it will be interesting and loose as a result. So let's get on with step one. So step one, watercolours, and we're thinking about shapes. So just like step one would be with a normal sketch, it's the same when we're doing watercolours. And we're going to be hyping up our colours a little bit. So what I've got, I'm going to use actually a bit of quinacridone sienna and a little bit of indigo to create a sort of brown but slightly warm brown. And we're going to be thinking about the key buildings, the key parts of our scene for step one. And we can do it in a couple of ways. So, number one, if you're feeling a little bit worried, use your brush. It doesn't have to be a flat brush, by the way, but use your brush. What you can do is you can literally draw your shapes. So you can do what you might normally do with a pen, and you can just draw your shapes. And a flat brush is lovely for this because you see how I can just create this nice flat line. And that's one perfectly good way of doing it. If you're feeling a bit more confident or a bit more experimental, get your colour, and instead of drawing, just put your thing down and just go for it and create that lovely shape straight away. And remember to leave a few gaps. We don't want these washes, we don't want to be really flat. We want them to be varied. And to vary it, we can change our wash as we go as well. So we've got, this is a bit heavy on the quinacridone, so we had a bit of indigo for the next shape. Pop that in. And then we can add even more indigo perhaps and do this roof. And then we could add even more indigo. So we're just gradually darkening this shade. We could bring in this next shape. And try and leave some of that negative space. So we've got this chimney coming up. We can leave that as negative space. And we can do the same for this. And we're still thinking about the shape. So all we've done is drawn a rectangle, but we've left a rectangle in it. There's nothing particularly clever about what I've done there. We're just thinking about shapes, breaking it down into shapes. I also have this fun issue when I'm filming like this, is I have to put my reference over there, and I've got this big light. So I can't actually see the reference when it's dark like this. I often miss things. So you'll probably spot a few errors, but by simplifying it into these shapes, it will make sense anyway, because it's very easy to simplify and make it make sense if you're just doing really basic shapes, and that's all we need to do at the beginning. And this is already the main castle starting to come together. Just need to put in a roof at the top here. And notice how I'm not joining up the shapes necessarily, but also notice how it's still nice and wet. So if I want to go and join up some shapes, I can, because I've painted with enough water. They'll join up smoothly. They'll join up for a little while as well still. Then, to keep that variation going, we're going to just refine the bottom using some indigo. So we've still just used 2 colours here. Just did a big variation. Or I might have snuck a 3rd colour in. Sorry, so we've got quinacridone sienna. That looks like quinacridone gold, which I've snuck in. And then the indigo. But we can refine the bottom of those shapes with a little bit of dark indigo. Use that for getting some of these chimneys going as well. And we can also just sort of drop it in and create that variation. Next, just a little bit of water, clean off our brush, and we can start to sort of just, if we want, create even more variation, just scoop out a bit of light. This is where, if we want, we can join up some of these shapes and avoid having too many of these lines at the end of our sketch. Or we don't have to, and we can leave things as they are. It depends how confident you're feeling, how experimental. Now next, we're going to approach this island. This is kind of already the end of stage 1. We're going to approach this island, and we're going to just do shapes as well. And what we can basically do is, instead of a shape really, we can get the bottom of this island in. And I'm just using, this is Cascade Green, but you could use any like medium earthy green really. Under that, you see how it's got that dark shadow? So under that, we'll just drop some of that indigo in again. And again, look, I'm not trying to make this totally neat. I'm trying to leave some white, and white's really important in our watercolours. Now, next, I'm going to take this green and I'm going to make it a little lighter. And I'm going to do that by using a bit of yellow. So I've got some Hansa yellow now. Now we've got a lighter green, and that's going to come in on top. And it's going to merge in places with the bottom of the building. Because look at the bottom of the building. Can you really see it? Can you really see a fine, like perfect line that delineates, separates the bottom of the building from the grass? Because if not, you don't need to draw it, you don't need to paint it. You can have them blending and merging together. Now, believe it or not, that is the end of stage 1. So what we want to do now is just leave it to dry for a couple of minutes, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I don't want it completely dry, but I want it mostly dry. Then stage 2 is kind of adding the background. So there's still a few shapes, but mostly it's about getting a kind of light tonal background. And we are back after 5 minutes, and you can see there's still some wet bits, but this colour's kind of blended and merged. We've got this really interesting variation going on behind things. So what's next? Well, it's the filling in the foreground, if you like, or filling in the background and the foreground, but not the focal point, which we've kind of started here. So we're going to take this this lake, which is a kind of grey rather than much blue, but we're just going to do what we want with it. And what I want to do is add a little bit of blue, a little bit of fun to it. So going to have some cobalt, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep a bit of a gap, at least initially, between here and here. It's still a bit wet, and that's partly the reason why I'm leaving a gap. And we can start making some of these shapes as well, just by taking our brush backwards and forwards, and then coming in, doing the same here, and just have a look, how far back does this lake really go? It goes to about here. And so now we've got that line in, we can just be a bit freer with our use of the brush. And then what kind of colours and things are going on in the rest of this sea? Well, there's actually some kind of maybe orangey yellows here, there's some blacks, and then there's some whites. So let's use the colours we've already used. Let's take our indigo, and that can be those darkest tones. Just pop them in and let them flow around. And then let's just play on that yellow theme. We've used a bit of quinacridone gold, that's the colour I sort of snuck in. Well, let's just pop that in. It's nice and rich and interesting, and it links the scene together instead of having this just odd blueness. And then the rest is white, so we can now just take water and start blending, pushing those colours around. Now, a lovely part of this kind of technique is the ability to really play with the colours. So what about flicking some water straight into there? See what kind of textures you get if you do some water flicked into your colour. What about if you come and drop some blues and just have a bit of play and see what happens? Going into the background, we've got these kind of greens and darks again, so let's just mix them up. So we've got our little dark mix, we've got a green mix. Now we've got a slightly more neutral green, and we can just kind of find shapes again, but be much looser with these shapes. Again, just leaving that little gap, which lets us come in and then just fill with a bit of darkness. Same as we did down here, we sort of went light and then popped the little darkness underneath. We can also get this kind of top edge as well, and we can just sort of scrub in this kind of other shape, and because we've got a little gap, it looks like foreground and distance and foreground are playing together. Same here, and then we've got last little bit, really, isn't it, this kind of green that jumps off the edge here. It's actually quite domineering in the picture. It's very dark, it's very sort of powerful. We can simulate that again just by dropping in some more of our dark. And now we can just, again, do this kind of blending together process and see what happens. And so we're on stage 2. This is background, and just have some faith. It looks like a right mess, doesn't it? It's really hard to see, you know, what is going on, what's going to happen, how's this going to emerge. But just by playing with colour at this stage and exploring the colours, exploring the shapes, exploring and basically just having a little play. And as I say that, I'm just putting some loose strokes of blue and yellow in the background. But by just having a play and allowing these colours to do their thing, even like blending and pushing some of these earlier shapes, we're going to create something really interesting, which we're done with already, by the way, that we can then impart structure on. So we've got this beauty, which is based off our reference image, which we can go ahead now and impart some structure onto. So again, we're going to let this dry for about 5 minutes. And then step 3, we're going to be coming back in with our smaller brush. And this is where we really start to see it come alive. And we are back again, and this is step 3. And if we've had step 1 shapes, we've had step 2 that kind of background and looseness, then this is step 3, let's call it beginning to come together. Now we're going to be applying dark colours, so it's the beginning of the structure, and it's the kind of the thickest watercolour paint that we're going to be using. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to be sticking mostly with those darker colours, but also some bold touches of light colours. So let's start with that same indigo and quinacridone sienna that I was using before. And we'll just get a nice dark, do you see that sort of muddy brown, but quite a rich colour at the same time. And what we're going to be doing is coming along and just finding key little shapes now. So we've got like these windows, for example. And much like, you know, we're almost at this point, to be honest. As a sketcher, I'm prone to drawing, and it's basically what I'm doing. I'm not able to just not draw, so I'm drawing this time with my brush, and I'm doing little loose shapes and joining things together, and perhaps finding some of these other little lines in the background as well. And we're going to go around and we're going to find a few of these windows. We don't have to do all of them, but enough. We can invent some as well. We can invent some lines. So this is like, we notice this feels a bit empty, so we can invent some stuff. We can do just really simple invention. Then we get up here and we can say, you know what, this is our chimney. This is our other chimney, so let's just keep away from there for now. So again, we can invent or find from the distance. And there are, you see, there's a kind of a window there, a window there. There's a little window up here, but I'm going to keep away from there so that I can keep the integrity of my negative space for now. We've got some other like detailed bits which I'm just sort of finding in the background, and we can start to suggest. So we got this kind of little structure here, haven't we? We can just, again, it's just a suggestion, and we can bring it, it's almost like a turret. We can just bring it in front quite easily. It's a little shape which didn't get into our first very basic selection of shapes. But by making this nice bold colour, it kind of comes forward. It's a kind of a light-filled way of painting and sketching this. So popping things on top just gives it that translucent come forward feel. And then we can come down here, and is there much detail left for us to add? Not really, is there? Now we can find some of those other fun details. So I'm going to go much brighter now. So this is mostly quinacridone sienna, a very nice reddish colour, and we can just find like these chimneys and things. And we can just say, you know what, chimneys in this are going to be this orangey, sienna-y colour. It doesn't matter that they're not. We can make them a motif. We can make, you know, our sketch makes more sense to the eye if all these chimney features are the same colour, because then you look around and you instantly get what they are, just looking from one to the other. We can come in and create some variation by just dropping in between some of that darker colour. And then, you see all these lines, what we're going to do, I've got my brush, it's almost clean, you can see a little bit of water on, and we can just come in, and by doing that we soften these edges. Do you see how that softens? And it makes it look like it was sort of part of that previous layer. We can actually do that around in some of our windows as well. And then it just takes them back a bit again. It prevents this being overworked if we just got a nice layering effect. You can find some of our shadows at this stage as well, because this, as I said, this stage is about those bolder colours and those bolder tones, which includes finding those areas which are more in shadow. And sometimes we might want to invent a shadow, so sometimes nice to invent shadows at points of change, because having a shadow or having a big contrast between your colours makes it easier for the eye to discern that there's a change here. And this is also why it's nice to leave this white gap in some of our colours. Now that's probably enough in our castle. We've got another stage where we've got the pen coming at the end, so let's move forward and we'll do a very similar idea with our green. And I'm just going to use again the same green. It's nothing clever. If you've seen my channel before, you will know nothing I do is particularly clever. It's all just basic principles and keeping things simple. We can just kind of, again, almost just draw in that bush. Do you see, just drawing in these kind of watercolour shapes? And if we want, we can come back in and we can soften between those lines, or not. Really, it's flexible and doesn't matter too much. We're just trying to create some of these different textures that we're seeing. We're trying to create this idea, this kind of layered idea which builds up a scene. So you start with just distant shapes, you build forward, getting that gradual increase in complexity and gradual increase in suggestion of detail, but all whilst keeping it really simple. Coming right the way forward now, we can use that same idea to really enhance some of these shadows. Now I'm not going to touch the sea very much at all, apart from maybe a few flicks, and just see how they look. And if we want, we can soften some of them away. We could add some darker ones, maybe just, now that we've got a bit of water on there, again just enhancing some of that texture, because this kind of body of water is very much a thing about the texture, isn't it? We can drag some of this shadow down as well. So if you just look, that will create a bit more of a connection, whilst also keeping it separate in other places. And then lastly, we've got the background. Now we want the background to be lighter, less saturated than the foreground. And as we go back, That's what we call perspective. It's called atmospheric perspective instead of a linear perspective. Atmospheric perspective describes how the colours change. And the colours also change to be more blue. So we can take our green, we can mix in a bit of blue, we can start to create just a pushback effect, or a slight pushback effect. A bit more of a yellowy green, a bit more of a dark green, and even just a bit more sort of blue and dark in here as well. And what we can do as well is just, we've got a big gap here, and actually, you know what, maybe we can just soften that and push it around. And then we're not quite having this big white area. We can soften there as well. And then we can just produce a bit more of a distinction between foreground and background with our real dark colours. And there you go, that is stage 3 done. And I hope you start to see now it's coming together, these kind of details coming forward. It's still a bit mad, but this is where we're going to start adding our pen in and seeing that it really quickly actually comes together surprisingly well. Now, with my brush pen, I'm lucky because I can go straight in now. And some of the brush pen will run in these wet areas. With a fountain pen, a Fuder pen or a fine liner, you'll want to wait until it's a bit drier because the water will sap the ink. But I'm going to go straight ahead. If not, wait 5 minutes again and then go for it. And stage 4, all we're doing now is defining shapes, adding suggestions of detail, and trying not to do too much because that's the biggest risk. So little flicks in of our ink, that's all we're after, little flicks. And then step back and look, little flick here, and defining this shape. This is an important shape. So now it's defined clearly with a deep black mark. Same here, little flick, and then step away. And then we can sort of define some of this perspective as well with this, making this clear line here, which we hadn't defined at all before. Coming forward, we've got this little turret-like chimney, which is in our negative space. We've got this other chimney here. And we're also starting to think about these windows. Now with the windows, we don't need to exactly map these black areas. We can underlap them, overlap them, ignore them, find other ones, but we're using these as, everything which has happened before we're using as inspiration for this stage of our drawing, of our sketching, of our painting. So here, for example, we could just invent a new window down here, not a problem. And we're just moving around gradually, doing enough to enhance shape, but not so much as to detract from the sort of beauty, the natural beauty of these watercolours. Down here, we get the opportunity to, you know, we had this big white gap now, but now we can just make it bold and dark and just remove that white gap. And we've changed from the beginning field completely. Again, more shapes up here, these chimneys. A couple of sort of flicks to suggest texture within this roof. Got this sort of turret, which we just found. Again, I'm blaming staring straight into a bright light with a relatively dark, moody photo. But, you know, that's just me making excuses, really. But it doesn't matter if we miss these things. And now we can just, going out, we just get looser with the amount of detail we're adding. We transform things into simple shapes. We just do little flicks, which are texture and nothing else, really. And then remember all this dark area, we can make it even darker. Do you see how the ink is darker even than that really dark watercolour we'd added? And we can again just find these shapes. So we've got this kind of sloping triangular shape of light green. We've got this little bush which we can, again, just, we're now properly drawing, aren't we? But you see how these lines are all interacting with the colour behind as well. And we can use those same motifs to continue to suggest greenery. So we've got this big greenery, it's worked well. So just use it, just keep using that same idea. This is art, it's representational, not, you know, not exact. And we haven't done these windows, so we can start just plopping a few bits of line in. Some places just doing really dark edge, some place going all the way around. And there we go. So hopefully that's now coming towards you. You can feel that kind of pull towards you, and that's because bold lines bring things forward. Just a couple of touches. We really don't want to overdo it in the sea, but we have got some lovely dark stuff going on in there. I keep calling it the sea, but the body of water. And then we can move to the background. And again, you need to be really careful now because dark lines bring things forward. So we don't want this background coming too far forward, but what we can do is just a few sparing lines, because that will separate this area. It will bring it forward with respect to this whole sort of sky thing we've got going on as well. We can do the same with these little areas of green. If we want, we can bring in some shape to this background just by doing those lines going out. And there we go, that is me done. So this is a direct watercolour approach. So it's watercolour direct onto the page, followed by our lovely touches of ink. And we've done it in 4 steps. And although it's a very rural scene, it's also urban in that we've really, our focal point is being applied to these buildings. Just remember, if you're doing this, that it's only just come together, hasn't it? So those first 3 stages, shapes, background and sort of less important foreground, adding darker colours, they're all building the sort of framework upon which that last bit of ink, the drawing, is going to just enhance things and just bring everything forward. So have faith, get through that scary part of the drawing, don't rush, and have fun. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you do, please do like and subscribe. Leave a comment asking any questions. You can check out my website where I list all of the things that I use regularly. And I'd love to see you along at the next little video I bring out. So thank you everyone for watching my little sketching videos. If you enjoy my content, please do subscribe to my channel because it makes me really, really happy. Thanks again.